This is an excerpt from a recent PowerUp webinar providing an in-depth tour of FFworks. Hi, my name is Larry Jordan. In this excerpt, I'll show you how to customize compression settings. Now, let's get involved in customizing compression. This time, I'll click the downward pointing arrow. We'll go to our media folder, and let's pull in lifting and ingot. More molten steel with beautiful color. We've seen that we can start with a target, but let's say that I want to resize this. Right now, it defaults to creating a 1920 by 1080 image, but I really want to create a 1280 by 720. What are my options? And worse, I want to be able to work with audio, and I made a point to have this be video only. What are my audio settings going to be? So let's go click the downward pointing arrow. Open up the import dialog. Pull this one in. I can have different compression settings for each of these two movies. Notice they're both 1920, 1080. They're at different frame rates, and that's okay. We can adjust that later. So how do we customize our formats? First, the easiest way is to apply a format. I'm going to use YouTube, but you could use anything. But I want to end up with an MPEG-4 file, so that's why I select YouTube. Across the right-hand side, in the sidebar, we have general options, advanced options, and video. Let me illustrate why I consider this a professional tool. I'm going to click the word Edit, and these are the settings that we can adjust for general options for compression. And just look at this for a second. Right. I don't see anything that makes any sense to me at all. I mean, this is just Greek. The good news is that we don't have to change anything here. So look at the general settings, cheer yourself up and say, do this especially when the client is watching, and you look at this and say, maybe I should adjust the Nero's fine. And close this. I don't care, what story you want to tell, but make it look like you're paying attention. Advanced options are worse. I mean, when was the last time you had to worry about the psychovisual trellis? Clearly, that needs to be turned off. And the visual strength, I think one is a perfect. Don't adjust the advanced settings either. Just nod your head wisely, say, the cool thing is these are fine. We'll leave those alone. It's when we get down to video and you click the word edit, we're going to start to see words that we've actually seen before. We can specify what the codec is that we want to use, and H.264 is the right choice. This is where we can change the screen size. Now, this is a professional tool, which means there is more options here than we're used to. Adobe and Apple take this stuff out to make compression more approachable. ffMPEG puts it in to give us more flexibility. So we're going to save this as a 1280 720 image or 1920 1080 right there. Though there are lots of other options, we want to keep it in the video format. Frame rate, it's always, always, always best never to change the frame rate. Know what your frame rate is for the deliverable. Edit that frame rate, shoot that frame rate, because changing frame rates is a life-altering experience. This one caught me by surprise. Aspect ratio, I thought, applied to pixels. It does not. Aspect ratio applies to the resulting video. So leave the aspect ratio on original. When I set this to 1:1, it squished the video so it wasn't 1280 720, it was 720 by 720. It converted the video to a square, not pixels. So this should always be left at original. Pixel format, again, if you want to look at that, it makes you feel better, go ahead. Leave it alone. The choice is always correct. Now here is where we have to pay attention. Video size allows us to change the frame size. This is where we can dial in compression quality. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to grab that slider. Rather than drag it up, I'm going to drag it off because I want to enter my own bitrate. Then change the bitrate setting to manual, and then dial in the bitrate that I want to use. In this case, say 1850. So change the video size as you see fit. Leave the frame rate alone. Leave the aspect on original. Turn constant quality off. Bitrate preset to manual, and set the bitrate to whatever number you want. Then, when it comes to audio, I'm going to go down here. See this little triangle? That indicates which clip is selected in terms of where we're making changes to the presets. Notice there's no audio setting, but there is an audio setting here. Again, with video, you're welcome to click the Advanced button, nod your head, don't change anything. I mean, experiment as much as you want. Clearly, you should feel free to play, but you don't need to play. The general options and the advanced options for every one of these are perfectly okay as they are and don't need to be changed. When it comes to audio, again, we can specify what our codec is going to be. AAC is the appropriate codec for MPEG-4. And if we click the Edit button, again, many of these settings we can ignore. Here we can ignore, here we can ignore. Codec AAC for MPEG-4. We can change the sample rate. Video is recorded with an audio sample rate of, or audio when you're recording it with video is 48,000 hertz. CDs are 44.1. My recommendation is if you're posting audio to the web, set it to 44.1. It reduces your file size by 10% and does not damage the perceived audio quality because bitrate determines high frequency response, and the high frequency response of 44.1 is above human hearing, so we'll set it there. You can then say, what's my bitrate going to be? If you're compressing stereo for MPEG-4, 128 kilobits is the appropriate number. If I'm going to YouTube, which is going to recompress, I double it and set it to 256. We'll go back to 128. Then you can say, do you want it to be mono, stereo, or surround? I'm going to say stereo. So if I'm posting something to the web which has stereo music and I want it to sound good, these are my settings. AAC, 44.1, 128 stereo. But my webinars don't have music. They just have my voice. So if you're dealing with someone that's a YouTuber that's just doing talk and is using only incidental sound effects and incidental music, then you can make your file sizes a lot smaller by setting it to 32,000 hertz, change the bit rate to 64, change the channels to mono, and you've reduced your file size by about 60%, maybe 65%, and you will not, even somebody with perfect hearing is not going to be able to hear the difference because we have already captured a frequency range greater than human speech. So reduced file size with no reduction in quality. The rest of these settings we'll leave alone. So just because I can, I'm going to set this back to stereo pair, 128, stereo. And we'll close that. There are other settings. You can leave them at their default. And now we're ready to compress. This has been an excerpt of a recent PowerUp webinar taking an in-depth tour of ffWorks. For the complete version of this online training, please visit our store at larryjordan.com/store and look for Webinar 258. By the way, when you need to stretch your training dollars, membership in our video training library saves you money and time. You can access all of our videos for a low monthly price of only $19.99. That's more than 1,900 movies, hundreds of hours on a wide variety of subjects. Plus, premium members can download practice media and projects. Our training covers Apple and Adobe software. We update it multiple times each month. And for more information, visit larryjordan.com/membership. And thanks